You're making more money than you used to. So why does it still feel like something isn't stable? You hesitate before spending. You check your account more than you need to. You feel a quiet tension, even when nothing is wrong. And somehow, even with a good salary, it still feels like you're not safe. Not people inside. There's a moment in adult life that almost no one talks about. It's when your external reality improves, but your internal experience doesn't follow. You earn money. You have more access. You've technically moved forward, but the feeling doesn't match the progress. You're still cautious, still slightly anxious, still unsure if it's enough. And this creates confusion, because logically, things are better. But emotionally, nothing feels resolved. This is where people start to think, maybe I just need more. More income, more savings, more margin. But that's not what's happening. This isn't about how much money you have. This is about how your mind interprets money. And most people never update that interpretation. Cody principle. Your financial identity didn't evolve with your income. Income is external. Identity is internal. And those two don't move at the same speed. You can double what you earn and still feel like the same person who had less. That version of you learned to be careful, to anticipate problems, to avoid risk. So now, even in a different reality, you operate with the same mental rules. You don't spend freely. You don't relax easily. You don't trust stability. Because internally, you still see money as something temporary. Micro insight. If your identity stays behind, your emotions will too. Not enough became your emotional baseline. Achisomi point your brain learned that resources were limited, and it adapted. It created a default state of alertness, a constant awareness of what could go wrong. That pattern doesn't disappear just because your income increased. It becomes your lens. So, even when your situation improves, your perception doesn't. You're no longer reacting to facts. You're reacting to a pattern. And that pattern says, this can disappear. Micro insight. Your mind doesn't track numbers. It tracks threats. Stability feels fragile, not reliable. You don't fully experience your money as something solid. You experience it as something that needs to be protected. There's always a background thought. What if this changes? What if this doesn't last? So, instead of feeling supported by your income, you feel responsible for defending it. That creates pressure, because you're not just living your life, you're guarding it. Micro insight. If safety feels temporary, money feels stressful. Your lifestyle quietly redefined normal. As your income increased, your life adjusted. Not dramatically, but gradually. Better choices, more convenience, higher standards. And over time, what used to feel like an upgrade becomes expected. So your new level of living stops feeling like progress. It just feels normal, which means your income didn't create a sense of abundance. It just maintained a new baseline. And from that baseline, you don't feel ahead. You feel stable at best. Micro insight. When your standards rise, your progress disappears. Spending became a way to confirm your identity. As your financial situation changes. So does the way you see yourself, or at least the way you think you should be seen. And without noticing, your spending starts to reflect that. You choose things that align with the version of you you're trying to become. Not necessarily what you need, but what feels consistent with your new level. This isn't about excess. It's about alignment. But the problem is, when spending becomes tied to identity, it becomes harder to control. Because now, it's not just a decision, it's a statement. Micro insight. When money becomes identity, spending becomes emotional. Your reference point shifted upward. You no longer compare yourself to where you started. You compare yourself to what's around you now. Different people, different standards, different expectations, and that shifts your perception. Because now, what you have doesn't feel impressive. It feels average, or even behind. Even if your situation improved significantly, your environment redefines what good looks like. So your satisfaction doesn't come from growth. It comes from comparison. And comparison rarely leads to peace. Micro insight. Your environment decides what feels like enough. You avoid full financial clarity. You engage with your money, but only partially. You look at your balance. You have a general sense of your situation, but you don't go deeper. You don't fully map your patterns, because that requires confrontation, and confrontation creates discomfort. So, instead, you stay in a vague understanding, and vagueness creates tension, because when you don't know exactly what's happening, your brain fills the gap with uncertainty, and uncertainty feels like risk. Micro insight. What you don't define will always feel unstable. Your decisions are driven by context, not structure. Most of your financial behavior isn't pre-decided. It happens in the moment. You spend when something feels justified. You adjust based on circumstances. You react to what's happening around you. There's no clear system guiding your money, just a series of decisions. And decisions require energy, which means the more you rely on them, the more inconsistent your behavior becomes. This creates subtle loss, not dramatic, constancy. And over time, that inconsistency erodes your sense of control. Micro insight. Without structure, money follows emotion. You expect a feeling that money doesn't automatically give. You assume that at some point, you'll feel secure, that there's a level where the tension disappears, where you stop thinking about money, where everything feels settled. But that moment doesn't come automatically, because security is not a number. It's a relationship. It's built through understanding, clarity, and consistency, not just accumulation. So, if you're waiting to feel safe, just because you earn more, you'll keep waiting. Micro insight. Money can grow without creating peace. When you look at all of this together, the pattern becomes clear. You didn't fail to progress. You failed to update. Your income changed, but your baseline didn't. Your perception didn't. Your behavior didn't fully adapt. So now you're living in a mismatch. Externally stable, internally uncertain, and that gap creates the feeling of being broke. Not because you are, but because nothing inside you recognizes that you're not. This is not about money. This is about alignment between what you have and how you experience it. Achisomi point money became more than a resource. It became protection. It became control. It became a way to avoid instability. And when something carries that much meaning, it stops being neutral. It becomes emotional. So even when your situation improves, your relationship with money stays tense. Because you're not just managing finances. You're managing what money represents. And the shift begins when you see that clearly, when you stop asking, "Why don't I have enough?" and start asking, "Why doesn't this feel like enough?" Because the answer to that question changes everything. If this felt familiar, then this channel is for people who want to understand not just how money works, but why it feels the way it does. Because sometimes clarity is more powerful than income. 5 memorable lines. If your identity stays behind, your emotions will too. Your mind doesn't track money. It tracks risk. When your standards rise, your progress disappears. Without structure, money follows emotion. Money can grow without creating peace.